And I've made a video on my salary year by year over the 9 years that I spent in banking. And the biggest pay jumps that I saw were from switching companies. So those are the two ways that I would actually say, yeah, increase your income, by asking for more or by switching.
I do think one of the most effective ways that I've seen as well is just looking at the industry as well and presenting a case from the industry. And people have done that to me several times. Over the last 10 years, they've come to me and said, the industry pay for my role and my seniority level in this part of the world, in this city, is this. I'm currently on this. Can we have a conversation about this to rectify it? And I can't think of an instance where I haven't been receptive to that, especially if it's justified, because actually sometimes the employer doesn't know. The employer doesn't know that they might be underpaying you. That's a genuine possibility. I know that sounds like crazy talk, but sometimes employers don't know, because a lot of roles that we're hiring for these days are new roles. They're not roles that existed 10 years ago. Even in podcasting, it's hard to find benchmarks for what people were paid in podcasting 10 years ago for different roles that now exist in our industry. So it's worth having an honest conversation. And I do think from the employer's standpoint, it's worth leading with the value that you've brought, like you've said, versus blunt demands. Because humans are human beings, and you can turn someone's nose up or their back up by the way in which you deliver your message. But delivering it from an evidence-based perspective and saying, these are kind of the accomplishments that I've made, and these are the responsibilities I've taken on, and this is like the industry average, and I love being here, and I want to stay here. So I was wondering if it'd be possible to have a conversation about my salary. I'd receive that very, very well.
And even aligning it to your company's objectives. This is what
exactly,
Turk was doing. Yeah, exactly. Here is what I've done aligned to your objectives that you're looking for. Exactly.
And you talked about saving for a house as well. Do you see buying a house as a good investment? Because it is the first thing most people do, right? It's like the first thing we're told as part of the script of life. When you get some money, save it up, get a mortgage.
A lot of our view about buying or renting or buying a house is actually formed from what we saw our parents do and what we saw the generation before us do. And so even looking at my life, formed from the way my parents thought, they came to the UK as immigrants. And when they bought their first house, it was like the epitome of success. They had this thing that represented wealth for them, that they could touch, they could see, they could feel. It represented stability, security. And then when we moved out of that terraced home into another home, it was between two stations in a catchment area. So me and my sisters got access to better schools. That was then their happiness. That was then their goal and the milestone achieved. And for the previous generation, and still the way people see it today, when people say, oh, we need to buy a house for wealth building, it's because a big factor of it is that it was a forced mechanism of saving. So when you're buying a house or paying for a mortgage, that's not optional. You have to pay it. You then can't then spend that money on anything else. And so as a result, those monthly payments are going towards building your equity and building this house's value. And as a byproduct, it's building wealth for you. So for someone listening to this, if they're hearing this conversation, they say, okay, you know what, I have a goal to buy, and they run the numbers, it makes sense for them, they're doing it for the long term, then I'll say that's a really good goal to have. Go for it. But I think we put a lot of pressure on people today that they need to buy a house, and as soon as they start working, that they need to get onto that property ladder. So if you're listening to this and thinking that I don't have a goal to buy a house, then there are also ways to build wealth that don't require you to be in the real estate game.
I think there's something psychological about paying rent that you never see again that makes you think that it's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you look at the mortgage payment versus the rental payment, you go, well, they're the same.
Yeah.
And I'll end up owning this chunk of concrete. So I might as well go for the chunk of concrete.
Yeah. But if you are choosing to rent, and actually there's been studies that's done on this, almost 9 out of 12 regions in the UK, and the same applies for other areas in the world as well, renting is or can be cheaper than buying in that equivalent neighborhood. And so if you are renting and you're saving money on that difference, then you've got to be disciplined and sensible enough to know that you need to invest the difference.
What do you mean?
So if your rent is $1,500 and to get that mortgage and you've checked the mortgage payments and you've realized that with the interest that you're going to be paying on the mortgage, all the other things that come into buying a house, so the stamp duty that you're paying, the property tax, the repairs, the maintenance, the insurance, if you factor in the costs of both and you do run the numbers and you say, okay, renting is cheaper than getting a home, that difference is what you want to be able to invest. It's kind of a way for you to say, I'm creating my own forced mechanism of saving. This is my own version of a mortgage. I'm the man I'm saving. I'm going to set up an investment account and I'm going to automate it and I'm going to put money into it every single month.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way you're going to build wealth. That's just as legitimate. And actually, I went onto the property ladder and the money that I put in towards that flat hasn't grown as near as much as the money that I made through the stock market.
By investing in the S&P 500?
Yeah.
So tell me about that. So you bought a property in London or somewhere in the world?
In North London.
Okay.
To live in.
Okay.
And I bought it in 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's gone up in value, I'd say about 10%.
Okay.
I've had it for 8 years. Then you compare that to the stock market. So sure, there's a number side of it where people think, okay, I need to buy a house to build wealth. But that's what I'm trying to explain, that actually, if you save that money and you invested it, you might be better off financially. But coming back to your point, yes, there's that psychological thing of, okay, do I want to pay that money on rent or do I want to buy? The other psychological part of it is also the comfort of knowing that you have somewhere. And this is a big reason as to why I bought. The comfort of knowing that no matter what happens, you have this place. It's yours. The landlord can't serve you notice. You can do whatever you want to the flat within certain restrictions and rules. And you have this piece of the earth that belongs to you. And so that's the psychological comfort that came from it. Sure, we could talk about the numbers and what investing will do and how much you can make on that. But the bit that often gets forgotten about is the invisible side, which is the peace of mind, the psychological comfort of just owning a home.
So can I ask, how much did your apartment cost in London?
$530.
So if you spent 530k on it,
Yeah.
Presumably on like a mortgage or something at the time.
Yeah, I was on a mortgage. Yeah.
So 530k, it's gone up 10%.
Yeah. It's gone up about 50k.
About 50k.
Yeah.
So it's now worth 580. But if you'd put that amount of money into the S&P 500.
Well, the thing with the house and a flat is you could use the mortgage. You wouldn't put that full amount in it because you had the mortgage. But if you put that deposit amount into it.
Yeah, the deposit amount.
Yeah, the amount that you would put as a down payment, the stamp duty that I would have also paid. If I save that amount and then put that amount, whatever it was, and invested that, that's the comparison that I would have made.
So how much was that in total that you paid into the property?
I put about 50, I think, K
Okay,
down.
So 50k, and probably the net return on that, if it's gone up 10%.
Yeah, so 10.
55k.
Yeah.
And the S&P 500 in the same time has delivered roughly 10 to 12% per year on average. It has more than doubled in value since 2017. So you would have probably got
There you go.
pretty incredible return on the S&P 500. Even in the last 5 years, the S&P 500 has grown 90%.
Yeah, makes sense.
So it's almost doubled in the last 5 years alone, which means you would have basically doubled your money just investing it in an index fund.
Are you looking at that from the lows of the COVID?
Yeah, it says even with the COVID lows, it says so. It has more than doubled in value since 2017, driven by strong growth in technology, despite the COVID crash and 2022 pullback.
Yeah,
so that's the last 7 years.
Case in point that we're looking at building wealth just through one mechanism that feels like it's urgent and needs to be done by everyone. But actually, if you're looking at it purely from a numbers and building wealth perspective, there are other ways to do that.
My brother was an investment banker. He now works full time, helping with my money and helping in my companies. He went to LSE. He's a very smart guy. He's always been like the boffin in the family. He always talks to me about this term opportunity cost. So when I told him, I said, I want to buy this house in Cape Town, he was like, this is going to cost you X millions. Think about the opportunity cost.
Yeah.
And he always, every time I say I want to do this, he's like, think about the opportunity cost. And he basically stands in the way of it. What is opportunity cost? And why should people be thinking about this when they're spending their money?
So every pound or dollar that we spend is one less that we could use on something else.